Hey Canada, I'm gonna make this video. It's a video response to another video from an up and coming alternative media gentleman called Josh Sigurdson from the Winnipeg Alternative Media. He's just a young man, but he seems to be doing his best to try to create an alternative media outlet source here in Canada that's challenging some of the establishment and entrenched media outlets that we all come to loathe and have disdain for. Anyways, what kind of struck me with this video and why I'm making a video response to it is Josh has a well, I guess he calls it a debate with Lead Now, which is another seem to be activist or movement type deal where they're trying to create change and bring about more freedoms and liberty in Canada. But as we're all seeing, we all got to be astute. We've got to we got to put our heads to the grindstone. We got to really make sure that the people are being honest, sincere, and legitimate, and they're not misinformed or ill-informed or pushing values that the populist values, like all of the old world religions or cults or movements. We got to make sure we weed out all the fakers, all the wannabes. And this video that Josh had, where he asked some questions to leadnow.ca's Joe Wasalicia or whatever his name is, it tells me that these are just, well, they want to call them progressives, but we all know that's just doublespeak, political doublespeak for collectivists. Socialists, communists, right? Democrats, whatever you want to call them, liberals, modern day liberals. They're progressive. These are collectivists, so they believe in the ideology of collectivism and religion of statism. So I'm just going to play this out, and we're going to kind of deal with this video, and I'll respond in the parts that I found most disturbing. So let's start it now.
Judy Wasilicia, former MP and mayoral candidate, and we'll see what he and LeadNow.ca, which he's working with, have to say about C51, Stephen Harper, and the four-party paradigm here in Canada.
Right. So we work for an organization called Lead Now. We're one of Canada's largest pro-democracy organizations.
Yeah.
And for the 2015 election, we are pushing our Vote Together campaign, which is encouraging people to vote for the candidate with the best shot at defeating the Harper Conservatives in their riding. And we believe that this is important. We know that vote splitting has been a problem in past elections.
Yeah.
And we believe that if this election we can build a block of voters to put a progressive government in Ottawa, hopefully this will be the last time we have to do that, because from here out we should have some form of proportional representation.
Sure.
That's part of Lead Now's long-term strategy.
Yeah.
So if you were paying attention to what this gentleman, this Joe Wasilicia or whatever his name is, this is strategic voting, as he's saying. So, when you're talking about strategic voting, we're not talking about the kind of strategic voting that's to eliminate, reduce the size and scope of government. He's saying, and he's admitting fully, but using the political language so that the ignorant or the conformists amongst you won't realize what he's saying. But what he's really saying is they're trying to entrench and create a situation where the progressives, the collectivists, their power is so entrenched in the system that there will never be any challenge to that ever in the future. If that don't disturb you, Canada, then I really don't know what will. And these young people their minds have been molded, especially through the modern education system. I mean, look at the modern education system is it is entrenched almost fully now in the collective ideology, right? I mean, the teachers now should be just called preachers instead of teachers, because that is what they are. They preach the religion of statism profusely to these young people. And these young people, because their minds have been formed and opinionated to the point where they can't. He's not thinking for himself. This young man, and I mean, no hatred or disdain necessarily towards him, because I recognize and realize he's probably just a very, very confused, indoctrinated individual. But they have power. They have the populist opinion behind them, because as we know, ignorance breeds conformity. And in Canada, ignorance is widespread and rampant. So conformity is, it's very widespread. And when we're talking about the millennial generation, so the boomer generation was slightly larger, right? It's the biggest demographic in Canada. Then there's my generation, Generation X, which is fairly small. I think we only make up like 18% of the population. And then the millennials that are not quite as large demographically as the boomers, but much larger than my generation. So us, Generation X, we have to keep paying attention, because we're going to be sandwiched between, and this has happened other times through history, so you need to learn some of that stuff too. But we learned the errors of the ways from our parents, because it was forced and thrust upon us, and we suffered the consequences. These younger people, like this gentleman, their recollections, their memory are not in line with what you and I are used to. So they're being told and taught things completely different than you or I, the real world experiences that we grew up on. So we always got to be mindful, and which is why we have to be genuine leaders, principled, honest, consistent leaders to these young people, so that even when you have guys like this we got to put our message out there, so that even if the odd time they get they get the opportunity to see what we get put forth, we have to be so honest and principled that they will recognize that they'll have to swear off their religion of statism, because they'll recognize inherently and morally that it's wrong. It's foundationally and fundamentally important for us to stick to our principles, so that these young people realize the errors of their ways. Because what they're talking about is when they talk revolution, it's actually, that is an actual proper term, because revolution keeps coming back around, right? Repeating the same thing. It's time that we start talking evolution, not revolution. Because revolution just means you keep bringing the same shit back around, back around, back around. We want humans to evolve, not revolve around some central state or central authority. Let me continue on.
Secondary to that, or sort of alongside that, is just general voter engagement, youth engagement, engaging and informing citizens about the importance of voting and being engaged with their democracy.
Sure.
So being engaged with democracy, like he's saying, I mean, that's the thing with these words, and it's a terrible thing that the English language has been distorted so much, to the point where you can use these terms that sound benign and benevolent, but they're inherently evil and immoral. But what he's saying about promoting democracy, it's mob rule, majority rule. So what he's really promoting is we got to get enough people together. We got to get enough people together from all different ideologies, all different spectrums or all different sides of the political spectrum. We got to bring them all together to fight the conservatives, which I'm not a defender of, because to me the left-right paradigm is bullshit. It's just like Catholicism and Protestants, right? It's just two birds of the same, or two wings of the same bird, right? It's all based on mysticism. But what he's suggesting is they got to find ways to be able to take that power, take control of the gun, the gun that represents government, the threat of force. They're trying to find a way to take that control. Whereas people like myself, peaceful type of people that aren't looking to use any kind of force or manipulation or coercion to control other people, we're saying is reject that gun completely. The gun of religion, not the physical gun that you can use to defend yourself from sociopath control freaks and criminals, but the power and of force and coercion, right, which is government. Let's listen to what else he has to say.
Yeah, I think, I have a lot of long-standing concerns with the Harper Conservatives, particularly around the environment, the complete ability to ignore the Aboriginal constitutional question in Canada. They were absolutely silent on the Truth and Reconciliation report.
Yeah.
And Bill C-51 is particularly disturbing, and that is something that we've had a lot of pushback with our community, because in some cases, if we're going to get Harper out, we have to vote for Liberals.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, because as I was mentioning to your friend over there, when I see Harper, I see him as a fascist. But then when I see the others, I see the lesser of the evils. But they're still evil if they're the lesser of two evils. So, I mean, with C-51, Trudeau says he supports it.
Yeah.
And C-51 is standing to be one of the most dangerous acts that we Canadians can face as activists and so on. So, is it like a good idea should we kind of be pushing towards more third parties these days? Because we have to remember the NDP was a third party in the States, Republicans, Democrats, both third parties at one point. Shouldn't we be pushing people to...
So even Josh here now, I'm sure anyone that watches my videos would recognize if I was doing this interview, which is probably going to be another step I may have to take. But if I were doing this interview, at this point, it'd be time to say, not, oh, let's talk about the fringe or third parties or, whatever, right? Trying to just get rid of the established parties. I would be making the distinctive point right now is like, shouldn't we be rejecting the religion of statism completely? Shouldn't we be pointing out to the fact to every Canadian that there is no such thing as legitimate government, which can be easily proven? And if he even tried the 4 questions, right, that some of you that have watched my prior videos would be aware of, and if you haven't, look back through my videos and you understand what I'm talking about. But he could use that right there as the platform or the basis for his line of questioning, that he could have put this Joe Wassey, whatever his name is, in a position where he would have to at least be admitting to the fact that he is a promoter of statism, the religion of statism. Then you don't have to play the political game. Then people would at least recognize that LeadNow.ca is just another political activist group. They're just looking to gain power and control of the gun. And so therefore the rest of us would be able to recognize that and point out, I don't want nothing to do with any of these guys or girls. But Josh, for some reason, he's playing the minimalist approach. Has Josh perhaps maybe not reached the epitome of what the true understanding of the philosophy and principles of liberty? Maybe not. I'm not sure. I haven't talked to Josh personally. Maybe someday I will have an interview. I'll interview. Try to make it. Actually, that's what I should do. I should try to interview Josh to see where he's coming from, so that I don't have to be presumptuous in trying to analyze the reasoning behind this line of questioning. Anyways, let's continue on.
Get on track with that instead of voting for the lesser of the two evils.
So, and I think I absolutely agree with you. We need a democratic system where people can feel that they can vote for whatever party they want to vote for from their heart, without worrying about the sort of bigger picture of vote splitting.
Yeah.
But the only way to get there is to get a progressive government who's going to change the electoral system over towards some sort of mixed member or proportional representation system.
Sure.
I think in the meantime, and it's comforting to see that the NDP has sort of slid into first place and are on their way.
It's comforting to see that the NDP has slid into first place.
By riding basis, there are about 50 key swing ridings across Canada where vote splitting will potentially elect Conservative members of Parliament. And I think we have to ask ourselves how much do we want to gamble on that? And as tough of a pill that is to swallow in terms of voting Liberal in some cases, for progressives like ourselves, I think it's something that we have to think about doing if we're serious about getting Stephen Harper.
Yeah, and I would even say even the NDP and the Green have a lot of problems themselves. I mean, the NDP has been found guilty of corruption in many cases over the many years. And
See, once again, Josh, this is some friendly advice for you, my friend. And I get it. Maybe you're trying to keep this interview lasting a little longer, but you really need to don't softball these questions. You should have called him out once again on the fact that he's promoting the religion of statism, trying to gain control of the power of the gun, right? This is not a person that I don't want nothing to do with these type of people. Matter of fact, I look at someone like that as an enemy to freedom, an enemy to real liberty. You need to recognize that, Josh, and you need to call him out for what he is, a promoter of the religion of statism. Join us on the true side of liberty. Don't play in the middle. Don't play in the middle. Don't try to play both sides of the coin. Join us over here. It's not a populist position to be in. I acknowledge and recognize that. But it's the right place to be. It's Canadian Libertarian. And I actually promote and love liberty. Real liberty.